Hello everyone, I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. I am Arif, your cloud learning journey partner. In today's video, we're gonna talk about top 5 AWS services that you must need to know. We all know that nowadays cloud is a big thing, and whenever we're talking about cloud computing, the first name that comes to our mind is AWS, that is for Amazon Web Service, because this is the industry leader in cloud computing field. So whenever we log into AWS console, we may see like almost hundreds of new services that are provided by AWS. It's very hard to know each and every services. So if you are a beginner in AWS, so you can target these 5 services first, because these are the core of AWS foundation. So if you know these 5 services, that will be well familiar with AWS ecosystem, and from there you can learn some other services that are essential for you. So before starting the video, I just want to talk about myself. Well, I am Arif. I do have more than 8 years of experience in cloud computing and cybersecurity. I do have multiple certification in AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. Beside that, I also hold CISSP and CCSP certification. You can see my certification in the background. Well, this channel is all about cybersecurity and cloud computing. So if you are interested in this field, this channel is definitely for you. So without further delay, let's dive in. I have logged into my personal AWS account, and from here we will explore the top 5 AWS services that you must need to know. The first one is EC2. EC2 stands for Elastic Compute Cloud. So remember, whenever we are dealing with any servers in AWS account, we are dealing with EC2. So under EC2, we do have different subsections. So the way we'll explain each and every services is that we'll provide a high level overview so that you'll have a basic understanding about that service. So under EC2, we do have different sections. So from here, under instances, you can, whenever we're talking about servers, in AWS term, we're talking about instances. So instances is equal to servers. And from here, you can see all the different subsections of instances, that mean the servers. And not only we are dealing with the servers, from here, we can also create our load balancer. So here in the load balancing section, we can create our load balancer. Then we can create auto scaling groups. So just give me let me give you a very quick example. So suppose you have a web server just like Amazon.com. So do you know like how things are working in the backend? Well, in the backend, there is not only one server. There are maybe thousands of servers as a web server. And whenever a new traffic or request is coming to our website, first is coming to the DNS. From DNS is coming to this load balancer. So load balancer is in front of all these servers. So once the load balancer is the traffic, it distributes the traffic to the EC2 servers. So in AWS, so whenever we're talking about servers, load balancer, auto scaling, then the volume that are attached with the servers, so everything is under this EC2 console. So if you know this EC2 service, that means you are in a very good state. So we must really need to know this specific service named as AWS EC2. The second AWS service that we really need to know is Amazon S3. S3 stands for Simple Storage Service. So we can say S3 is more of like a Dropbox, where we will have our own bucket, and we can put objects or files inside the bucket. The cool part about S3 is that we can put as many objects as we want, so there is no limit of storage. Here we can create our bucket, and beside using as a storage, we can also use as a static website. So I can show you that. So here, if I click in here, www.cloudjourney.com, and if I go to the properties section in here, here you can see that I have enabled the static website hosting for this S3 bucket. So a good question could be, is it a really useful way to host a website, a static website inside S3 bucket? Should we use EC2 or S3 bucket to host a static website? First of all, if we do a comparison in between S3 and EC2 for the static website, S3 is much faster, and here we are not running any specific server, so the cost is even less. The storage cost is also less. So for that reason, if you have a static website, then I always recommend to use S3. Here we can see that in the left panel we can see the bucket, so we can see our it has multiple other subsections too, so we can also use the S3 as a long-term storage. We call it in AWS term glacier. So suppose, let's think about it, you have a few very important data for your organization, but after few years there is a restriction that you need to you can't delete those files, but you have to store it, but it's not frequently used. At that point, what you can do a data transition from the normal storage to archive storage, which is cheaper, and in this way you can save extra money. So S3 is a very useful service to know, guys. The third service that we really need to know in AWS is Lambda. So whenever we are dealing with any serverless architecture and we need to run some code, we should always consider AWS Lambda. So a good question could be when we're talking about like serverless, that means there is no server at all. Well, technically at the back end, we do have few servers, but those servers are managed by AWS. We don't have to bother about the configuration or about the uptime. So we'll write some code in here, and those code will be run. So we can trigger those code using some event handler, and then we will get charged only for that particular time that the code was run. So it's a very useful service. So nowadays, more and more organizations are moving their architecture from server architecture to a serverless architecture. So it's very important to know AWS Lambda. So whenever we need to do some automation or any event-driven invocation, it's always useful to use Lambda function. Or the fourth most important AWS service we really need to know is RDS. RDS stands for Relational Database Service. So here it's a very cool service. I will show you from here. So if I click Create Database in here we can see the options that we have. We have SQL Server, we have MySQL Server. We do have Oracle, MariaDB, so different variations. So if we are dealing with a relational database, we can always use RDS. A good question could be, which one is a better solution? If we install DB inside a EC2 server, or should I use managed service like AWS RDS? Well, I always prefer AWS RDS because first of all, we're not managing the underlying infrastructure. So the uptime is managed by AWS. That's a very neat thing. And also the compliance and everything and security, everything is managed by AWS too. So if we want to use any production ready environment for our database, AWS RDS is definitely the solution. The good part is that we can also do the automated backups for RDS, and also we can do the cross-region backup. Suppose if your primary region goes down during a disaster event, you can still have your data and make sure that your application is running by using your secondary region data. So AWS RDS comes with a lot of flexibilities. So we must really need to know this service, because whenever we are deploying an application or we are planning to deploy it in the prod or any sort of environment, we really need to have a DB, and AWS RDS is definitely a very good option. The fifth and last AWS service you really need to know is AWS VPC. AWS VPC stands for Virtual Private Cloud. So just think about it. Whenever you are deploying a EC2 server or an RDS DB, you are defining the networking. So you need the subnet, the IP address, the public IP address, the private IP address. So from where you're getting this, you're getting all of it from AWS VPC. So in AWS VPC, we can create our own virtual private cloud where we can define our subnets, we can define our route tables, we can define our internet gateway. So anything related to networking, we can define it in here. We can also control who can access our network and how can they access access our network. Isn't it cool? So if you know AWS VPC, then you will understand the backbone of AWS ecosystem. So for that reason, AWS VPC is a really must service that we need to know. So here you have it, top 5 most useful AWS service list. So if you guys have any questions or any concern related to these services, please let me know under this comment section, and I'm going to reply back in a very short period of time. If you want me to cover any specific topic related to cloud, IT, or even any sort of career counseling, let me know under this comment section, and I'm going to reply back in a very short period of time. Thank you so much guys for watching my videos. It means a lot to me. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe to my channel so that you can see my upcoming videos. That's all for today. Have a great and wonderful day.